Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily, the Sarah Lawrence College cult.
You do something wrong to someone else, you victimize somebody, and then you sit there and cry for yourself.
I didn't want to.
A cult member takes the stand as her alleged one-time leader is tried in federal court. Plus, competency is the question for the Wisconsin woman accused of murdering and dismembering her lover.
There was a crime committed and probably committed it. I'm satisfied for all the reasons that I've cited that I'm ordered that competency evaluation.
And
the defendant is guilty. He has pleaded guilty. He does not have a presumption of innocence. So this is way different from any other proceeding in this courthouse.
the Parkland school shooting case is back in the courtroom ahead of Nicholas Cruz's sentencing phase. But first, the prosecution's star witness takes the stand in the murder of Lorenzen Wright.
Like brainstorming, they were coming up with ways of how to best, perform the act.
Okay, and what act are we talking about?
The murder of Lorenzen.
Law and Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Brian Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin. The prosecution's star witness and co-conspirator in the murder of Lorenzen Wright takes the stand in Tennessee. This as Billy Ray Turner is charged with the NBA star's 2010 murder. Wright was reported missing in July 2010 when he didn't return calls to family members. His body was later found in the Tennessee woods near his mother's home. 7 years after his death, Jimmy Martin led investigators to the murder weapon in a Mississippi lake. After that, defendant Billy Ray Turner was arrested and later charged with Wright's murder. Prosecutors say Wright's ex-wife, Shara Wright, recruited Turner to shoot and kill her ex-husband. They say she was after the basketball player's life insurance policy. Shara Wright was later charged in connection to her ex-husband's murder. She's currently serving a 30-year sentence for facilitating the murder. On Thursday and Friday, Martin took the stand, telling jurors Shara Wright recruited him to help kill her ex-husband. He testified what happened when Wright was murdered and later how Turner disposed of the gun.
Lorenzen had his back to him. They started chasing him. They started firing at him, chasing him. He jumped through the fence. He was jumping like a deer. They caught him when he fell.
Did she say whether or not she had a gun?
Yes, sir.
Did she say whether or not Billy had a gun?
Yes, sir. She said both of them had guns.
Did she say whether or not both of them fired?
She said both of them fired. Once we got there, we proceeded to get rid of the pistol.
Tell me how that happened. Tell me who did what.
Billy got the pistol out the trunk, fouled off the serial number, and threw it into the lake.
And where were you when this was happening?
I was right there beside him.
Joining us today is LA Deputy Public Defender Philip Dubé and Terry Austin. All right, Philip, prosecution star witness took the stand, but did he fully connect Turner to this murder?
Oh, I think he did ample. He gave enough evidence to convict, absolutely. And you top it off with being led to the firearm itself. And you have to understand, too, that there has to be some evidence as to why this man would just make this up. Is there evidence, for example, of him being granted leniency? How did he know so much detail? And frankly, most people want to ensure that if I'm going down as a witness in this case, I want everyone to go down with the ship with me together. And I think in essence, he fills in all the blanks, and the jury is going to be left with an inescapable conclusion that there was no good reason for him to make this up.
All right, let's talk about a good reason, Terry. Credibility of a witness who helps plan a crime is always attacked by the defense. So how did Martin hold up on cross-examination?
Well, I think he held up pretty well on cross-examination. He is not, as you say, the most credible witness. He's a convicted felon in another case. He's a co-conspirator in this case. And he has a deal with the prosecution, so you have to wonder what is his motive here. But, his answers were either rehearsed or he didn't remember the details. I've got to say, though, the cross-examination was not done very well. I have more criticism for this defense attorney. Again, he was all over the place. Instead of just going in a sequential order, he was trying to impeach him on his prior interviews, but it just was very confusing. And the judge actually at one point said, listen, you're being disrespectful. He did this outside of the jury, but he had to reprimand him. Never a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely not a good sign. I know you've had many comments about this defense, Terry, going forward. I'm guessing no passing grades here from the school of Terry Austin. We'll see how it continues, though. Maybe he'll get better. Switching now to Idaho, as the attorney of one half of the so-called Doomsday Duo is working to sever ties from the accused killer's co-defendant. At a hearing Friday, Chad Daybell's attorneys argued uncertainty surrounding his co-defendant's case is reason enough to split his trial from wife Lori Vallow Daybell. Both face charges in the deaths of Lori's two children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and in the death of Daybell's first wife, Tammy. The pair were dubbed the Doomsday Duo for their shared belief in the end of days. The couple was married in 2019, just weeks after Daybell's wife mysteriously died in her sleep and Vallow Daybell's youngest children went missing. In June 2020, the remains of J.J. and Tylee were recovered on Chad Daybell's property. Since then, there have been questions surrounding Vallow Daybell's ability to stand trial after she was initially deemed incompetent. The outcome of a recent psychiatric evaluation has not yet been released. Chad Daybell's attorneys now say his case should move forward without his second wife.
I don't want any delay, Judge. I need a decision one way or the other as to whether this is going to be severed, because I have a significant amount of preparation that I'm going to need to do, and there's going to be an impact which way this goes. And this has been pending for this motion's been pending for 5 months, and it hasn't changed in 5 months Ms. Vallow Daybell's position in terms of where she's at. We have no certainty as to where it's going to be in another 5 or 6 months. And I think it's inappropriate to put Mr. Daybell hanging in this situation with the idea that we don't have any certainty as where this is going. Given that, Judge, there's a difference between delay and uncertainty. And given the uncertainty, Your Honor, I would respectfully ask this court to sever the cases.
Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, a Wisconsin woman compared to the likes of Jeffrey Dahmer, as investigators say she murdered and dismembered her lover after sex. But first, the Parkland school shooting. A hefty settlement is reached with the victim's family.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTubeTV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTubeTV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTubeTV. We put you in the jury box.
Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. An update now on the Delhi Parkland school shooting. The families of the victims reached a monumental settlement with the Department of Justice to the tune of more than $127 million. This comes just weeks ahead of the sentencing phase for the man responsible, Nicholas Cruz. In October, Cruz pled guilty to all 17 counts of murder and 17 counts of attempted murder in relation to the shooting in early 2018. The families of those affected reached the settlement based on the FBI's failure to stop Cruz despite receiving tips about the shooting weeks before the attack. Cruz faces the death penalty or life in prison to be determined at his sentencing set to begin in early April. On Friday at a status hearing, attorneys discussed questions for jury selection with the judge, saying this case is different than most since it's just the penalty phase and not proving guilt.
This is a penalty phase. There's no presumption of innocence here. The defendant is guilty. He has pleaded guilty. Knowledge of the defendant in this case is not really something that is going to be instructive as to these jurors' abilities to serve. It's whether they can listen and render their opinion as to what sentence should be. He has pled guilty. He does not have a presumption of innocence. So this is way different from any other proceeding in this courthouse.
So we would, obviously, I said I took this from the last one. We would take that out, but I'm assuming that you all would want me to still instruct them on the law, which would be beyond reasonable, a reasonable doubt and what that means. Because I have to be able to say more than can you be fair and impartial? Can you follow the law? This is the law, and who can follow, who cannot.
Let's bring back LA County Public Defender Philip Dubé and Terry Austin to discuss this landmark settlement by the DOJ. Terry, what were some of the arguments that led to this settlement, and what's your reaction to this large amount?
Well, it is a large amount, but you have to remember it was 17 deaths, 16 of those families sued. One decided not to sue. But was the FBI negligent? That is the issue. Was it reasonable for them to ignore the tip that they got that 5 weeks before the shooting, there's a call saying that Cruz bought guns and that he wanted to go and shoot up a school? This is something they really should have responded to. So I don't think it was reasonable that they didn't. Obviously, they have thwarted other attempts, but not this time. And this was such a huge case. And frankly, I think the millions of dollars is not going to obviously do anything for these families because they'll never have their children back.
Terry, now I'm interested to see how that one family who didn't sue is reacting to the settlement, but that's probably for another day. Philip, when we look ahead to the sentencing phase, what issues could we run into when it comes to finding a jury?
Oh, they're going to want a jury that has kids, grandkids. You want bonus moms on that jury. You want foster parents. You want pediatricians. You want people who work regularly with kids, teachers, youth coaches, clergy, that type of thing, because those are the types of jurors who could embrace somebody like Nicholas Cruz as one of their own and not set him free, but certainly not condemn him to death.
Yeah, absolutely. One side looking for the death penalty, the other side looking for life in prison. It's going to be interesting, but of course, Law and Crime Daily will bring you the update as it comes in. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, emotional testimony on Friday from the Sarah Lawrence sex cult trial's key witness for Lawrence Ray's sex trafficking charge. Adam Classwell brings us details straight from the courtroom. Plus, prosecutors say she murdered her lover, cut off his head, and sexually assaulted the remains. But is Taylor Schabusiness competent to stand trial? That's still ahead on Law and Crime Daily. Welcome back. A Wisconsin woman appears in court after she's charged with murdering and decapitating her lover. Law and Crime Daily Sierra Gillespie joins us now with the latest developments.
The same woman who told investigators they would have fun trying to find all the dismembered body parts of her victim is now ordered a competency hearing before court proceedings can continue. It was 24-year-old Shad Thyrion's mother who found his decapitated head in a bucket at the bottom of her stairway. Investigators say Thyrion's lover, 24-year-old Taylor Schabusiness, is responsible for his murder, sexual assault, and dismemberment. Schabusiness appeared in court virtually on Thursday as her defense attorney motioned for a competency evaluation. But if you blinked, you missed her.
Ms. Schabusiness isn't here today. She doesn't seem to be engaging directly with the court. I can't see her face. I can see her, but she's not looking into the camera. Now she is. All right.
Instead, Schabusiness stood in a cell at the Brown County Jail with her arms crossed. She's being held on a $2 million cash bond. Last month, Schabusiness told investigators she went, quote, crazy when she began choking Thyrion during sex. While she didn't plan to kill him, she said she was, quote, already this far and liked it. After he was dead, she performed sexual acts on Thyrion's body. She later dismembered the remains, putting a leg and foot in her vehicle, but leaving the victim's head behind in a bucket. She told investigators, quote, I can't believe I left the head, though. She also told investigators that she had become paranoid after smoking meth and shooting up trazodone. Schabusiness's attorney requested a competency evaluation, saying he's concerned about her ability to assist in her own defense.
Who's going to represent Ms. Schabusiness in this very important case? And it's getting a little bit confusing. She's making some of these choices to allow it to be confusing on her own. And I'm satisfied that that too gives the court concern or reason to doubt the defendant's competency.
The results of that competency evaluation will be discussed at an upcoming hearing set for April 4th. Schabusiness is set to appear again in court next week on March 22nd for her adjourned initial appearance. Reporting in Green Bay, Sierra Gillespie, Law and Crime Network.
All right, LA County Deputy Public Defender Philip Dubé and co-host Terry Austin are back to break down this bizarre case of death and dismemberment. Terry, walk us through competency. How will it affect the case if she goes to trial and any potential plea deals?
Well, this is truly a bizarre case, and under Wisconsin law, if she lacks the substantial mental capacity to understand those proceedings and to assist in her own defense, she could be deemed incompetent, and that will mean there will be no trial until she's deemed competent. So she will be in a mental institution. They will be taking tests. They will try to determine whether or not she's competent. We've seen this before in Idaho, obviously, the Lori Daybell Vallow case, where she has now been deemed incompetent for over 180 days. So we don't know how long this will last if she's deemed incompetent. But if she comes back competent and they go to trial at some point, there's always the defense of insanity.
All right, Philip, let's talk about that defense, because in my mind, there has to be an insanity defense here, right? And again, I don't think there's any way the prosecution can argue against that, or can they?
Well, it depends. The standard in Wisconsin is that they have to prove, or the defense has to show, A, that she in fact has a mental illness, a mental defect. And typically that has to be a settled psychotic spectrum disorder separate from a drug-induced psychosis. So you can't just get loaded and high on meth and opioids, commit a crime, and then cry insanity. You have to have a true settled mental illness independent of any drug-induced psychosis that you might have. But once you show that, then she has to show that she lacked the capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct or to conform to the law. Well, let's assume she can make out the fact that she has a settled psychotic spectrum disorder. Her problem is that she was able to adequately clean up the scene afterwards, dispose of the head, clean up. So it clearly shows that she could appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct and could otherwise conform to the law.
All right, maybe this isn't as black and white as we originally thought, but of course, we'll get more updates on Taylor Schabusiness as the case continues. When we come back, a first-hand account of life on the inside of the Sarah Lawrence College cult. Law&Crime Network's Adam Klasfeld breaks down a former cult member's testimony from the federal courthouse in New York. Welcome back to Law&Crime Daily. Federal court is back in session for accused Sarah Lawrence College cult leader Lawrence Ray. This after Ray suffered back-to-back seizures on Tuesday, delaying the trial for several days. Ray faces 17 charges, including racketeering and sex trafficking, among others. All this stems from allegations dating back to 2010, when prosecutors say Ray moved in with his daughter, who was a student at Sarah Lawrence College. Officials say Ray befriended several students and abused them for upwards of 10 years. Prosecutors say he extorted money from the students, forced them into sex and prostitution, and even held manipulative therapy sessions. On Friday, one-time cult member Claudia Drury took the stand, detailing she endured at the hands of Ray. Our own Adam Klasfeld was at the federal courthouse on Friday as Drury testified. He tells us Drury testified she was scared for her life while under Ray's control.
The key government witness, Claudia Drury, is at the heart of the sex trafficking claim against Larry Ray. Claudia Drury testified that she became a prostitute at Larry Ray's behest and made $2.5 million from sex work for him. There was very graphic testimony in court. She basically said that Larry Ray, on top of the central allegation, also physically abused her, said that he slapped me in the face so hard I fell over, pulled my hair, strangled me, suffocated me, hit me. She said that he threatened to put me in jail numerous times. He threatened to kill me on a memorable occasion. He threatened to cut my face. He threatened to have me abducted and dropped in the Middle East. He threatened to blackmail people I knew. He threatened to beat up my father.
The defense is likely to argue the prosecution didn't meet their burden because, let's face it, what else do they have in this case? But at what point do you think they start thinking about the sentencing and is now too soon?
Oh, Let me just tell you, they have a very, very strong case. And usually when you argue that they haven't met their burden without asserting any affirmative defense, that's all you have really to argue to the jury. There is a very aggressive movement afoot in this country to go after sex traffickers. There is a very serious heightened awareness to go after these people. And as we saw in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, it's not just men. They're going after the women madams who are also putting the victims of sex work quite aggressively, for lack of a better term. I don't think there's much hope for this man. What he should do is try to, as a Hail Mary, if it's at all possible, negotiate a settlement. But I predict whatever that settlement is going to be in the very high double digits.
Absolutely. Now, Terry, we have seen several extremely disturbing videos already. What type of impact will these videos have on the jury?
Listen, I think the fact that we have these videos means that we will probably get a conviction. The evidence is just so overwhelming. And this is unlike many of the other sex trafficking cases we've seen. Philip mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell, also Harvey Weinstein, also Bill Cosby. The difference here is that we have this video. We actually see him grooming these individuals. We don't see the actual sexual acts, but this is more than enough for a jury to say this individual is guilty. And the testimony of the two witnesses we've heard so far, Claudia Drury and Santos Rosario, they both are saying very similar things, that he subjected them to violence. So very damning evidence.
Yeah, I think this is going towards one outcome only and one come only. Thank you both. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.